The awakening line, from lost to becoming. How to transform your lost mother feeling into strength. You know that quiet ache, the one that whispers, "I don't recognize myself anymore." It's the moment you stare into the mirror and see a face that belongs to everyone but you. The world tells you to be grateful, to find joy in the miracle of motherhood. But gratitude can't silence the dissonance between who you were and who you've become. That's the invisible grief no one prepares you for. Not the loss of a child, but the loss of identity. And yet, hidden inside that emptiness is a power that could rebuild everything you thought you'd lost. This video is not about getting your old self back. It's about understanding why you were never meant to. Because what feels like disappearance is actually transformation, a biological, emotional, and spiritual recalibration. By the time you finish watching, you'll understand how your brain, your body, and your soul are working together to rewrite your story from exhaustion to evolution. You'll see that what you're calling disconnection is the nervous system's way of creating a new foundation for strength. Scientists call this transformation matrescence, the neurological rebirth of a woman into a mother. Spiritually, it's the initiation of a soul into deeper awareness. And emotionally, it's the reconstruction of self through the weight of love, fatigue, and awakening. When these three layers meet, the biological, the psychological, and the spiritual, the woman inside you doesn't vanish, she expands. If you stop watching now, you'll keep mistaking growth for loss. You'll keep thinking that emptiness is failure when it's actually space being cleared for the next version of you to arrive. But if you stay, you'll learn how to turn this transition into power, not by escaping motherhood, but by inhabiting it fully. This is not about surviving your transformation. It's about learning to lead it. Every story of rebirth begins with something falling apart. This is where your strength starts, not in resistance, but in surrender. Because what you think broke you may be what's building you into something far greater. The invisible phase, what science calls matrescence. There is a word for what you are living, though no one ever told you. Matrescence, the transition every woman goes through when she becomes a mother. It's not just emotional, it's biological, psychological, and spiritual, a metamorphosis as intense and transformative as adolescence. But unlike adolescence, no one celebrates this passage, no one names it, and so most women mistake it for failure. In 2016, Nature Neuroscience published a landmark study proving that a mother's brain changes permanently after pregnancy. Magnetic resonance imaging revealed a reduction of gray matter in areas linked to self-focus, while regions connected to empathy, emotional perception, and social intuition expand and strengthen. What looks like loss is in truth refinement. Your brain isn't erasing you, it's sculpting you into someone capable of perceiving the world more deeply, attuned not only to your child's needs, but also to the pulse of life itself. The Harvard Women's Health Review confirms this neurological reconfiguration continues long after birth. Hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, and prolactin don't just bond mother and baby, they rewire circuits of trust, intuition, and resilience. You begin to feel more, sense more, anticipate more. And yes, that intensity can be overwhelming. But what feels like chaos inside your body is actually your nervous system learning a new language, the language of expanded awareness. In neuropsychology, this process is called neuropruning. The old pathways, the ones wired for individual survival, are cut back to make space for collective consciousness. That's why you may feel disconnected from who you were before. It's not amnesia, it's rebirth. The mind that once thrived on independence is now designed for interconnection. You are not less, you are more complex, more attuned, more alive.
And yet society still measures worth through productivity, beauty, and linear success, all things that collapse under the cyclical, fluid rhythm of matrescence. No wonder so many mothers feel like they're failing. The world isn't built for this new version of you, but your brain is, your biology is. Every cell is aligning with this transformation, preparing you to lead life from a place of deeper coherence. Matrescence is not the end of your identity. It's the architecture of your next evolution. The loss you feel is not disappearance, it's initiation. You are standing at the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming, and that threshold is sacred. The myth of the old you, why she was never meant to stay. Everyone tells you to find yourself again, but what if the version of you they're asking you to find no longer exists for a reason?
The woman before motherhood wasn't destroyed. She was integrated. Motherhood doesn't erase identity. It dissolves the ego that defined it. The old you was built on who you needed to be to survive a world that rewarded performance and punished vulnerability. But birth rewrites that equation. It awakens something older, wilder, and infinitely wiser. Psychology calls this identity integration, the process through which every major transition, death, marriage, loss, or birth, dismantles the self so it can expand. It's not a crisis, it's evolution. In the Journal of Family Psychology, studies on maternal adaptation show that women who stop idealizing their prematernal selves experience greater creativity, emotional flexibility, and a deeper sense of purpose. The grief of losing who you were turns into gratitude when you realize that who you were was preparing you for who you're becoming. Think about it. The old you was defined by control. The new you lives inside surrender. Before motherhood, success meant managing everything. After it, it means learning to trust what you can't. That shift from external control to internal wisdom is the true definition of maturity. You are not supposed to go back. The goal is not recovery, it's integration. When you try to live through the patterns of your past self, the woman who needed to be perfect, efficient, composed, you disconnect from the mother you are now, intuitive, present, raw. The exhaustion you feel isn't from motherhood itself. It's from fighting the transformation that motherhood is trying to give you. If you could see yourself from above, you'd notice something extraordinary. Two identities moving in parallel, slowly merging, the woman and the mother. The pain you feel is the friction of that union, but once they align, strength replaces confusion. The old you hasn't vanished. She became the root system that feeds your growth. Every skill, every dream, every fear of hers still lives in you, just rearranged, recalibrated, refined. You're not losing her. You're carrying her forward in a more grounded form. The version of you that could plan and perform now coexists with the one who can sense and surrender. That's not fragmentation, that's wholeness. So stop searching for who you were. She did her job. She led you here. Now it's time to build the woman she always wanted to become. The neuropsychology of strength. What actually changes in the brain? Strength after motherhood isn't just metaphorical. It's neurological. The maternal brain undergoes one of the most profound reorganizations known to neuroscience. Researchers at Stanford Medicine and Cambridge Neuroscience have documented structural changes in gray matter, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, insula, and amygdala, regions that govern empathy, emotional regulation, and intuition. These areas don't weaken, they become denser, more efficient, more attuned. You are not losing mental sharpness, you're gaining emotional intelligence, the kind of intelligence that can read a heartbeat before a word is spoken. Before motherhood, your brain operated primarily in self-referential loops, planning, ambition, self-image. After childbirth, neuroplasticity rewires your circuitry for connection. It heightens pattern recognition and sensory awareness so you can detect subtle cues.
a shift in your baby's breath, a sound in the distance, an energy in the room. What feels like hypervigilance is actually expanded perception. The brain doesn't collapse under the weight of motherhood, it adapts to its complexity. This rewiring, however, comes at a temporary cost. The networks that once prioritized focus and autonomy are now directed toward empathy and protection. That's why you sometimes feel scattered or forgetful. Your mental bandwidth isn't shrinking, it's redistributing. The mind that once held schedules now holds lives. The exhaustion you feel isn't weakness, but proof of neurobiological evolution in progress. From a resilience perspective, the maternal brain develops what psychologists call endurance circuitry. The constant toggling between stress and calm strengthens the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, building emotional stamina. That's why mothers can function through sleep deprivation, sensory overload, and endless multitasking, not because they're superhuman, but because their biology adapts to sustain life. Yet the most fascinating transformation happens in the insula, the region responsible for self-awareness. Studies from the Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience reveal that maternal activation expands insular activation, deepening intuitive processing. You begin to feel truth rather than analyze it. This is not irrationality. It's embodied intelligence, where intuition and logic converge. Every act of caregiving, every decision made under exhaustion strengthens the neural bridges between emotion and reason.
That's the real power of the maternal mind, the ability to lead with empathy without losing discernment. When you think you've lost control, your brain is actually refining your capacity to love without collapsing. You were never designed to stay the same. The brain evolves to meet the soul's new purpose. So when you feel different, slower, deeper, rawer, that's not regression, that's expansion. Strength isn't something you recover after motherhood. It's something your brain builds because that's the real power of the maternal mind, the ability to lead with empathy without losing discernment. When you think you've lost control, your brain is actually refining your capacity to love without collapsing. You were never designed to stay the same. The brain evolves to meet the soul's new purpose. So when you feel different, slower, deeper, raw, that's not regression, that's expansion. Strength isn't something you recover after motherhood. It's something your brain builds because of it. The emotional shadow, when love meets exhaustion. No one talks about the emotional paradox of motherhood, how love can coexist with loss, how joy can live beside resentment. You can adore your child and still mourn your freedom. You can be grateful and still ache for silence. This is not contradiction, it's complexity. The maternal psyche isn't linear. It's an ocean where tenderness and tension rise in the same wave. Psychodynamic research from the British Journal of Psychology explains that ambivalence is not the opposite of love, it's a dimension of it. The same brain circuits that create attachment also generate anxiety. When oxytocin floods the system to deepen connection, cortisol rises too, amplifying alertness. That's why you can hold your child and feel both warmth and overwhelm. Your nervous system is recalibrating between expansion and survival. This state of duality often becomes the root of the lost mother feeling. You look around and see everyone else appearing composed while you feel fractured inside. Society conditions mothers to hide complexity, to present peace while they are unraveling. The result is emotional dissonance, a split between what you feel and what you're allowed to show. That disconnection breeds guilt, and guilt quickly transforms into shame. But here's the truth, you're not broken, you're rewiring. The exhaustion you call failure is your nervous system learning new thresholds. The emotional chaos is your brain building endurance, rebalancing chemistry, forging empathy, teaching you how to hold love and fatigue in the same breath. This is why emotional exhaustion is often mistaken for weakness. In reality, it's neural adaptation.
A study from Maternal and Child Health Journal found that when mothers acknowledge ambivalence instead of suppressing it, stress markers drop and oxytocin stabilizes. Naming your emotions literally rewires your limbic system. What you feel is chemistry seeking coherence. The moment you stop fighting your fatigue and start listening to it, the body begins to regulate again. Exhaustion is not your enemy, it's information. It's the body's way of whispering, slow down, integrate, recalibrate. The maternal heart expands by breaking, not to collapse, but to grow capacity. Love that deep must stretch something open, and sometimes that stretching hurts. To transform the lost feeling into strength, you must stop seeing emotion as evidence of failure. It's proof that your system is alive, responsive, evolving. You are not meant to suppress the shadow. You're meant to illuminate it, to see that the same exhaustion that drains you today is strengthening the emotional architecture you'll stand on tomorrow. The energetic field of motherhood, beyond the physical brain. Science can map neural pathways, but it can't measure the quiet electricity that flows between a mother and her child. That's where neuroscience meets something older, the energetic field. Every emotion generates a frequency. Gratitude vibrates differently than guilt. Calm radiates differently than chaos. The HeartMath Institute has shown that the human heart produces an electromagnetic field measurable several feet beyond the body, and that this field synchronizes between people, especially between a mother and her baby. In other words, your emotional state literally becomes your child's environment before you even speak. When you feel fragmented, your energy communicates instability. When you return to coherence, when breath, thought, and feeling align, your child's nervous system mirrors that rhythm. This is not spirituality in abstraction, it's neurobiology in motion. Studies in psychophysiology confirm that heart rate variability, the biological marker of emotional regulation, improves in infants when mothers practice deep breathing or mindfulness near them. Emotional stability is contagious, and it begins with vibration. That's why strength in motherhood is not only mental but energetic. You transmit what you embody. The guilt, the rush, the invisible pressure to be everything, they fragment your field. But when you allow yourself moments of grounded stillness, your energy becomes medicine. It recalibrates the space. The room itself feels softer, calmer, safer, because your nervous system has set the tone. Quantum biology explores this phenomenon through coherence theory. When systems vibrate in harmony, they exchange information more efficiently.
The same principle applies to human connection. When your emotional field is coherent, communication with your child flows effortlessly, not through words, but through resonance. This is why some days, when you breathe deeply, your baby settles without reason, and on others, when your mind is scattered, the room seems to hum with unease. Mothers often mistake this energetic exhaustion for emotional failure, when in truth, it's energetic overload. You absorb not only your own emotions, but those of your child, your partner, your environment. Your energy field becomes saturated with signals. The solution isn't to harden, it's to realign. Grounding rituals, breath work, light exposure, and even spatial coherence, organized, uncluttered surroundings, help restore the electromagnetic balance of your body. When you shift from guilt to gratitude, your frequency rises. Gratitude regulates the vagus nerve, lowers heart rate, and expands the magnetic field of the heart. This shift doesn't just change how you feel, it changes the environment your child is growing in. Coherence is the invisible architecture of love. You don't need to control your child's emotions, you need to regulate your own energy. When your heart beats in calm rhythm, it teaches your child's heart to do the same. That's the true meaning of motherhood as frequency. You are not just raising a human being, you're tuning a nervous system. Rebuilding identity through sensory design.
the space as mirror. Your mind and your surroundings are in constant dialogue. Every sound, color, and object around you is feedback, a mirror of your inner state. After motherhood, when your brain reorganizes and your emotions shift daily, your environment becomes more than decoration. It becomes therapy. This is where psychoarchitecture, the study of how space shapes emotion, meets motherhood. When everything inside feels chaotic, outside becomes medicine. Studies from the Environmental Psychology Review show that sensory overload in physical spaces directly increases anxiety and cortisol in mothers of young children. Visual clutter, harsh lighting, or synthetic materials signal threat to the nervous system, keeping the body in low-grade alert. But when the environment is coherent, aligned in texture, tone, and rhythm, the mind follows. This isn't aesthetic, it's neurological. Space trains the brain. Think of the home as a sensory ecosystem. Lighting controls melatonin and rest. Colors modulate mood. Materials regulate tactile comfort. Even the layout influences your perception of time and safety. A cluttered space fragments focus, an open one invites breath. This is why reorganizing a drawer or changing the light near your bed can feel like a small act of self-recovery. It's your nervous system recognizing coherence again. In neuroarchitecture, this is called environmental congruence, when the outer environment mirrors the internal need for calm. A postnatal brain craves predictability and warmth. That's why soft tones, dimmable lighting, natural textures, and breathable fabrics restore balance. They reduce sensory noise, allowing the nervous system to downshift from survival into presence. When the physical space stops shouting, the inner dialogue softens too. For mothers navigating the lost feeling, the home often becomes the first mirror of that loss. Messy, overstimulated, full of unfinished stories. But every object you choose, every corner you restore, is a message to your subconscious: I'm rebuilding myself. The order you create externally becomes a neural rehearsal for order within. This connection between spatial coherence and emotional stability is supported by research from Harvard's Center for the Developing Child, which found that predictable environments improve emotional regulation in both parents and children. When the mother feels visually and sensorially safe, her parasympathetic nervous system activates, producing oxytocin and lowering cortisol, a biochemical signal to the child that the world is safe too. Your home doesn't need perfection, it needs intention. Create spaces that speak softly, rooms where light feels like breath and textures invite touch. Let nature in. Open windows, add plants, bring sunlight where shadows have lingered. The brain reads these cues as renewal. When the space around you becomes gentle, your thoughts follow. The room begins to function as a mirror, not of who you were, but of who you're becoming. Every light you adjust, every object you release, every quiet corner you claim back tells your brain one thing: you are safe to evolve. The body as memory, where strength hides. Your mind may forget, but your body never does. Every contraction, sleepless night, and anxious breath is stored in the architecture of your muscles, fascia, and breath. The body is the diary of your transformation, silent, precise, unedited.
When you say, "I feel lost," what you really mean is that your body hasn't had time to return home. Strength doesn't begin in the mind. It begins when you start listening to the places where your body still whispers the stories it couldn't speak. Somatic psychology teaches that emotion is not abstract, it's physiological. The heart races not only in fear, but also in love. The chest tightens not only from anxiety, but from the responsibility of holding too much. According to Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory, your nervous system operates in two languages, survival or safety. And motherhood, in its constant state of demand, often traps the body in survival mode. It's not mental weakness, it's biology doing its job too well. When the body perceives threat, even subtle, a crying baby, unfinished tasks, the endless shoulds, the vagus nerve shifts into hyper-alertness, freezing digestion, tightening muscles, shallow breathing. The body prepares for battle, but the battle never ends. Over time, this tension becomes identity. You stop noticing it. You call it normal. Yet beneath that armor is a softness waiting to breathe again. In Somatic Psychology Journal, studies reveal that conscious movement, breathwork, and touch-based practices like yoga, fascia release, or even slow walking reset the body's internal rhythm. Each act of release signals to the brain, I am safe now. And safety is the soil where strength grows. Notice what happens when you stretch your shoulders or take a deeper breath. Your thoughts slow, your vision clears, your emotions settle. That's not coincidence, that's co-regulation. The body is sending a message to the brain that survival is over. When you stop resisting your fatigue and instead meet it with curiosity, when you ask, where is my body holding this? Healing begins. Your body doesn't need to be recovered. It needs to be recognized. It's been carrying not only your child, but every invisible expectation, every standard of perfection, every fear of not being enough. When you move, gently, consciously, you're not exercising. You're renegotiating safety with your nervous system. You're telling your body, we're no longer in danger. You can rest. Strength lives here, not in pushing harder, but in learning to listen. When you start honoring your body as the archive of your evolution, you realize you were never weak. You were storing power in silence. And now, as you begin to move again, not to perform, but to reconnect, that stored power becomes your return to self. The soul of the lost mother, spiritual alchemy of identity. Every transformation carries a sacred wound. Motherhood opens one so deep, it forces the soul to remember itself. What feels like loss is initiation, the death of an old consciousness making way for expansion. Across ancient cultures, from the Egyptian goddess Isis to the archetype of the Great Mother in Jungian psychology, this passage has always been seen as a rite of power, not fragility. The woman who gives birth does not only bring forth life, she births herself anew. Spiritually, this moment mirrors alchemy, the process of burning the old to extract the gold within. The exhaustion, the confusion, the emotional chaos that accompany early motherhood are not random suffering, they are purification. The ego, built from who you thought you were, the achiever, the planner, the perfectionist, cannot survive inside the new frequency of unconditional love. That collapse you feel is sacred fire. The woman who emerges from it carries wisdom carved from surrender. Mystics describe this as the dark night of the soul, the phase where all familiar reference points dissolve. The purpose is not punishment, it's revelation. Your soul is forcing expansion. It wants you to see that strength does not come from what you control, but what you allow. In that surrender, you meet the part of you that cannot be broken, the consciousness beyond the identity of mother or woman, the self that simply is. Science recognizes what spirituality intuited centuries ago. Transformation requires destruction. In neuroscience, this is called synaptic pruning. Old connections are eliminated to make room for stronger, more efficient ones.
The spiritual parallel is clear. The person you were must fall apart so the person you were born to become can take shape. Destruction is not loss, it's design. When you accept that chaos is creation in disguise, guilt turns into grace. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and begin to ask, "What is trying to be born through me?" That question shifts everything. It pulls you out of shame and into authorship. You begin to realize that the emptiness inside you isn't absence, it's sacred space. The soul clears out what no longer vibrates with truth so that new consciousness can enter. Every breakdown is the soul's invitation to rebuild differently, to be reborn with consciousness instead of conditioning.
And every mother walking through this fire is a modern mystic, carrying the ancient work of transformation, turning exhaustion into empathy, fear into intuition, survival into creation. You were never meant to remain who you were before. The fire of motherhood was never meant to burn you down. It was meant to forge you into the light you came here to be. When the video has already been worth it. If you've made it this far, pause, breathe. You've already shifted something within you. What began as confusion, the ache of feeling lost, is becoming understanding. The simple act of staying here, listening, letting your heart absorb these words is the first proof that you are no longer surviving motherhood. You are awakening through it. You came here searching for answers, but what you've really found is permission to feel, to question, to evolve without apology. You might notice that your breath has softened, that your chest feels lighter. That's not coincidence. Your nervous system is responding to recognition. When a truth lands, the body releases tension it has carried for years. This is why awareness itself is healing. It reclaims coherence where fragmentation once lived. And in this coherence, you begin to remember you were never truly lost. You were simply walking through the fog between identities. Science calls this integration. Spirit calls it rebirth. But whatever name you give it, you can already feel it. The strength you thought you lacked is awakening beneath the fatigue. The clarity you've been chasing has been waiting inside silence. The mother and the woman are beginning to align, no longer fighting each other, but building each other. If something inside you feels seen right now, if even a small part of you whispers, "This makes sense," then this moment has already been worth it. Because transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens in recognition, in these quiet moments when a new truth replaces an old story. I want you to write something in the comments, not for me, but for yourself. A declaration that seals this moment into reality. Write, "I am becoming who I was meant to be." Those words are not affirmation, they're initiation. Each letter is a step toward coherence between mind and body, emotion and purpose. You have spent so long trying to rebuild what was, but this is where rebuilding ends and becoming begins. You are no longer the woman before motherhood, nor just the mother you've been told to be. You are something new, the bridge between both. And the moment you feel that truth, even for a second, the lost mother transforms into the reborn one. If you can feel the calm beneath your chaos right now, know that this video has already fulfilled its purpose. Because strength doesn't arrive at the end, it awakens in the middle, in the exact moment you realize you've been carrying it all along. The integration. How to rebuild yourself from the inside out. Transformation without integration is just chaos in disguise. The difference between feeling lost and feeling reborn lies in what you do with the awareness you've gained.
The next step isn't about changing your life overnight. It's about aligning your internal architecture with your external reality, piece by piece. Integration means rebuilding yourself consciously so that every thought, emotion, and action moves in the same direction: wholeness. Start with the mind. Every time you think, "I'm not enough," your brain strengthens that neural pathway. But the opposite is also true. When you practice thoughts that honor who you're becoming, you rewire your reality. Use visualization intentionally, not to fantasize, but to train your nervous system to feel safe inside your new identity. Neuroscience calls this experience-dependent plasticity. What the mind rehearses, the body learns as truth. So, visualize not who you were, but the woman emerging now, grounded, clear, and calm within uncertainty. Then move to the emotional level. Healing requires allowing. Instead of suppressing emotion, meet it with curiosity. The Journal of Positive Psychology found that naming an emotion reduces its intensity by up to 40%. When sadness or anger surface, say to yourself, "This is integration happening." Emotion is not an interruption to growth. It is the movement of energy through your system. When you feel instead of resist, your nervous system updates the story it tells about safety. Now the body, the sacred bridge between what you know and what you live. Simplify your rhythms. The body heals in predictability. Create sensory rituals that anchor you. Warm light at dawn, silence before sleep. One space in your home that exists only for calm. Each act of physical order tells your brain the world is stable again. And when your surroundings breathe coherence, your inner world follows. And finally, the spirit, the part of you that remembers meaning. It doesn't need religion, it needs reverence.
Moments of stillness are not luxury, they are calibration. Sit for 5 minutes a day and ask yourself, who am I becoming right now? Don't answer, just listen. Spirit speaks in sensations, not sentences. Over time, that quiet will become your compass, guiding decisions, relationships, and purpose. Integration is the process of coherence, aligning the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual layers of your being until they move as one. That's what true strength is. Not perfection, not balance, but internal alignment that cannot be shaken by external noise. You rebuild not by striving to find yourself, but by making space for who you've always been, the woman beneath the conditioning, the soul beneath the schedule. When these layers align, clarity returns effortlessly. You stop searching for purpose and start living from it. The real transformation begins here, in these small, intentional acts of coherence. Because healing isn't something you chase, it's something you become. The new woman, the phoenix in the mirror. Stand before the mirror for a moment. Look closely, not at the tiredness in your eyes, but at the strength hidden beneath it. The woman staring back isn't the one you used to be, and that's the point. Every sleepless night, every tear shed in silence, every act of love given when you had nothing left has been burning away what no longer served you. What's left isn't a shadow of who you were, but the essence of who you were always meant to become. In mythology, the phoenix doesn't rise in spite of the fire, it rises because of it. The ashes are not a symbol of destruction, they are the proof of transformation. The same is true for you. The fatigue, the loss, the confusion, they are evidence that you've survived the burning, that your identity is being reforged in the light of truth. Neuroscience mirrors this story. Through synaptic pruning, the brain literally dissolves old neural pathways so new ones can grow. Destruction, both spiritual and neurological, is the beginning of evolution.
you may still feel fragments of the old you calling, the woman who chased perfection, who sought validation, who feared being seen in her rawness. But the new woman no longer needs to perform strength. She embodies it. She doesn't strive for balance. She radiates presence. Her power is quiet but unshakable, born from coherence, not control. This new self doesn't wait for permission. She no longer asks whether she's doing motherhood right. She trusts the wisdom that rises from her own body, her own rhythm, her own truth. The mirror becomes a portal not to the past, but to the future, the reflection of a consciousness expanded by love, by pain, by awakening. The ashes that once symbolized exhaustion are now fertile ground for intuition. Every breakdown has taught you compassion. Every moment of silence has trained you to listen. And every surrender has given you access to a strength that no external world could ever grant. You didn't lose yourself in motherhood. You met the version of you capable of holding worlds, the one who knows how to create life and still choose herself. So look again at that reflection. There's no need to search for who you were. The woman you see is the bridge between all versions, past, present, and becoming. She is not the end result. She is the continuation of creation itself. This is the moment you stop surviving your story and start embodying it. You are not the lost mother. You are the phoenix, risen, luminous, and free. You've just walked through the fire, and you're still here. Not smaller, not burned, but brighter. What you've lived through was never meant to erase you. It was meant to reveal you. The exhaustion, the confusion, the endless giving, all of it was the initiation you didn't know you were walking. And now standing here, you understand. You were never lost. You were being rewritten in a language your soul had been waiting to remember. The space you create inside yourself from this awareness is what your child will inherit. Not the perfection of your routines, not the control of your plans, but the frequency of your peace. Because when a mother returns to herself, she becomes a mirror where her child sees safety reflected back. The nervous systems co-regulate, the energy harmonizes, the home vibrates differently. This is the invisible architecture of love, one healed breath rewriting the blueprint of generations. So if this video reached something sacred inside you, if it helped you see that motherhood is not the end but the expansion, let it ripple. Share it with a mother who needs to hear that her exhaustion is not weakness, but evidence of evolution. Tell her she hasn't disappeared. She's simply dissolving what was never true, making space for what is eternal. And before you leave, anchor this transformation into words.